Welcome to Church at Home. We're excited that you're with us here today. We are not at church physically, but we are at home, just celebrating God's goodness for what He's done over the year. And He has been faithful. Regardless of how difficult the year has been, He has been faithful. And with me are some of our leadership staff here at TCC. Everybody say hi.
Hi.
And we trust that you had a great Christmas. And we just wanted to share some of our stories this year, what God has showed us, brought us through, and still bringing us through, because He is faithful no matter what has happened this year. And we're looking forward to a 2021 that's full of God's goodness. And you should be too. You should be too. So we're going to start with Sean. Sean, tell us this year what God has shown you, what you did different because of the pandemic. What did it cause you to rearrange, maybe reprioritize in your life so that you can be effective and survive this pandemic?
Well, definitely God showed me that your mind and your body can be stronger than you definitely thought it could be.
Yeah.
Like I've been on this journey, just this fitness journey for a while, and when the pandemic hit, I was at the gym, but then they closed everything down, so it kind of put me at a hold, like a stop still. So I was just at the house, and of course being inside of a house for too long is not a good thing. So I just said, hey, I'm gonna go out and just do a little bit of running here and there. I ended up just actually being really good at it. Didn't think I would be, and it became like something of a habit. So I started just running, hitting crazy miles, like 40, 50 miles at a time. So that also gave me an opportunity, like I don't run with headphones, so it gave me an opportunity to really be like in God's presence. Like I'm out there with no one, so I get a chance to be able to talk to Him, and like really for Him to really discuss my life with Him, and Him to really like reach down into places that I buried and just forgot all about, and Him just like pulling up like, you're better than what you think you are. You can overcome things that you thought you couldn't. So He's been putting these things in front of me, all these different different things that I thought I would never be able to do. Like I have this upcoming run coming in 2021 that I'm going to sign up for, and it's a 100-mile run. And these are things that God's just like, you can do it because it's showing people that you can overcome anything you want to at any time in your life. I'm 40 years old, turning 41 this month, and it's crazy that He is there to show me the things that I thought I was missing out on. So He's really opened my eyes to a lot of big things.
I think that's good, and I think Ari would say it's more of an addiction now than it's that's it's not a habit anymore. Now it's an addiction, but because I think once you push past limitations, you can't go back.
Yeah.
It's the way it was. It's hard. Your mind has been stretched, your body's been stretched. You see now what you can do, and I think it's God's way of breaking you out of the shell that you put yourself in. And now that you're out, there's no going back. And so, Ariel, looking at your life, being a professional, what does it cause you to do different this year, and what has God shown you?
So this year was definitely crazy. I had a lot of ups and downs. Pastor Richie was actually one of the first people I called when the pandemic really set off and was becoming like this really life and death mentality. I work in the hair salon. I'm super close to people, closer than Sean and I are right now. So I was freaking out thinking, they're saying don't be near people, and I'm leaning over, shampooing, doing haircuts, and I would walk out front and start crying, thinking, should I be here? Should I not? So I called you. I'm like, I don't know what to do, and you're like, only you know how much you can take. You just gotta, figure it out. So it's really a struggle in logistically and life, thinking I'm in control of my life, but really, it's God. Am I? Because I'm thinking if I leave work now, I'm not going to get unemployment. But if I stay, these people are breathing on me, and that's how you're going to get COVID. So at that time, mid-March, it was really confusing. And I just figured, okay, I got to stick it out till whatever the salon does, because I can't walk away and just be like, I quit. So then cut to, we're in this COVID closure, and I was furloughed for about 8 weeks. I was home. It was the longest that I think I've ever been home, even when I had my son originally. And I was trying to be thankful of the time not spent at work.
Sure.
But it was really hard to stay positive because I was thinking about why am I home? What's going on in the world? And some days I was just really honestly depressed and I didn't want to do anything. And Sean would say, come on, let's go for a walk, let's go for a bike ride. And so I would eventually go outside, get some fresh air, start feeling better, be thankful for the time I had with my family. But to be honest, it was hard not to take why was I home, what's happening. So I just had to get to the place and realize, I'm not in control of what happens in the world and I can't take the pressures of the world. So I can only do what I can do at this time and really just try to be thankful that we're not sick, we have some savings and everything's gonna be fine in that sense, and realize that I can't put unemployment above God.
Yeah.
And that was a struggle. So eventually, we were at this other phase of going back to work, and then it was like, am I ready to go back to work? Now I've been at home
Sure.
and I got used to that, and now we're supposed to go back and around people, and it's bad to be by people. And that was really a crazy place to be in because we're in community.
It was difficult. Yeah, it was difficult.
So we're back to work, and at this point, school is coming up for my son. It was that decision, do you go back to school? Do you do school remote? So we decided to keep Vinny home. At first, he did the remote learning, and I thought, well, this would be a good time. I've been laid off. My job is a luxury. People are getting laid off all over. They might not be able to afford in the future to come get their hair done. So I thought, well, my son's doing school from home, so can I. So this was my first go at college classes, and we decided we had our little front office set up, we could do that together. And it was really our Monday, Wednesday kind of routine.
Sure.
So that was pretty cool, and we're in this groove, and then all of a sudden, I see my son getting a little bit isolated, getting a little too comfortable being home alone. So I said, Sean, I really think Vinny needs to go back to school. Honestly, I think he was fine with him staying home the whole time because we really weren't sure. Everyone's a medical expert at this point. It's a lot of thoughts coming in one way, thoughts coming in the other way, but I said 100% he's isolated, maybe 0 point whatever percent he could get COVID, and then percent on that get really sick. So we put him back in school. He's doing awesome. But then that left me with this choice. What the heck? I'm in school. Why am I now? Like, do I drop out? Do I keep going? Like, I'm home by myself writing papers for the first time. I mean, in high school, I didn't really go.
Yeah.
So really for the first time ever. So I just thought, just keep going. One day. I don't really have a long-term 100% goal that I'm doing with it, but it's just like with the pandemic. I can't go too far ahead, and I can't take on other people's opinions. Oh, you were in, are you still in? How's it going?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do in the future. All I can do is like one day, keep moving forward, try to do what God's called me to do, and finished out first term, I guess it's called, with a 4.0.
Yeah.
So, it could be a withdrawal, it could be a fail, but I'm gonna keep bragging.
We'll take the 4.0 right now.
And it was a roller coaster, guys. It really was. It still is. But we're just trying to do what God's called us to do, and just keep going.
Yeah, and I don't think it's important, what he said. I can't take on the world's problems. They're too big for me. They're just too big. Everyone has their opinions, and I have to focus on what I feel like God's called me to do, and that's it. And that's where I need to stay, because it's better for me health-wise if I stay in that arena, because I need to hear what God's telling me to do and keep walking that way. So I know for you, Maria, education system was a mess once COVID hit, because no one really had a plan, and they were trying to figure out what the best way for us to educate these kids. And I know you have a little bit of a story of what that looked like for you, as far as having kids now go from brick and mortar to now go to strictly online. I know kids fell through the cracks. People were trying to figure out, how do we graduate these kids? They're not logging online. So what is your story? How did you deal with that? And I know you're probably still dealing with some of it. and I know you've had some other issues happen over the last couple months. So why don't you tell us your story?
Okay, so my story, my school is more of a trauma-based school. Our kids have been through a lot, and they come in, they're automatically behind, they're automatically below GPA, and so we're a little bit of a smaller school, and we do a lot of online teaching and direct instruction teaching as well. So what happened was we were all on spring break, right? And then all of a sudden we're coming back and they're like, no, you're not coming back.
Yeah.
We want you guys to come in on these alternate days to get your books and stuff. You're gonna be teaching counseling from home. And we're like, oh, okay, so what's that gonna look like? So we take everything home and we're waiting to find out. And they said, oh, you're gonna use Microsoft Teams, which who knew what that was, right? So, okay, we're gonna try our best. We're trying to learn it. We're trying to enroll the kids on it. As a counselor, I have to have my groups of kids and see them. And so, guess what? Like the kids were like, hey, I'm still on spring break. I'm not going, I am not going to school, right? And so we were like, hey, you have to come to school. We're teaming them, nothing. But here's the difference, like with my students, I have all their phone numbers, like their cell phone numbers.
Yeah.
Because when they finish classes, I send them messages. And anytime they need something, they know they can call me, they can text me. So what started happening was, I was like, okay, like we have got to get going here. And then the sweet governor issued a decree that said you didn't have to pass any tests last year.
Oh,
And
man.
they said,
Mario!
This is a gift from God.
That's a 4.0 right
You
there.
don't have to pass ACT, SAT, FSA, nothing. You're clear. Like if you graduate by June, you are clear. Like let's go, let's go, let's go. So we were calling them, we were teaming them. Sometimes we would go to their houses and say, hey, listen, we were making sure they all have the electronics,
Yeah.
they all had the internet, giving them hotspots. We just stayed on them. And we worked from about 9 in the morning till about 11 at night, at least 5 days a week, sometimes 6 and 7 days a week, like just stay on it. We had almost all our seniors graduated, almost all.
That's great.
About 50% of our juniors graduated, about 10 10th graders graduated, and 1 9th grade graduated, because they hustled. So then at the last minute, we had a semblance of a ceremony for graduation. So we were feeling on top of the world, right? And then my counseling business, which was supposed to be just like a little bit until I retire in June, just took off because all these people were all stressed out and anxious. And they were like, they'd call me up and they'd say like, I need to see you. I'd sit down with them and they'd be like, I'm so stressed. I go, what do you do every day? What do you do? And they go, well, we get up, we turn on the news.
Bad move.
Yeah, so I had people like, okay, listen, you're gonna take your dog for a walk.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna sit down and have breakfast and have some nice music playing, you know. You're gonna go to work and do your job at your house, and you're not gonna go online, you're not gonna go on the news until noon. Can we do that? And it made huge differences because people were like, thousands are dying every day, and they were like so anxious. So, okay, so that's going good. So I said, oh, this is great, God. Like my business going good, we graduated kids, maybe I should retire now. And I said, nah, let me finish with these kids. Let me finish 1 more year. And so I had to send my mom, who had been living with us, which was good, like, because me and Rach, we were always there with my mom. And so I had to send her to my sister's so I could go back to school. And so I take her up there, I tell her I'm not leaving her. I went and visited her a couple of times, you know, that was all good. Meanwhile, the school system starts implementing these new software systems. Now the teachers have to teach kids face-to-face or brick and mortar. They have to teach kids online at the same time. We have to use these online systems that don't work for us. The county's telling us when we're on Teams, we have to have our cameras on so they can monitor us. You know, it begins to become feeling very controlled and punitive. And then they start dinging people for all these stupid things. So where I was feeling like I'm victorious, you know, like it's a wrap, like I started feeling overwhelmed and like,
Almost defeated, right?
yeah, definitely. And also like my kids couldn't get what they needed. You know, they couldn't get what they needed. And then they started having us do all these different things. You have to tell the kids this. You have to tell the kids this. They have to do this Navion's career program. I'm like, we're trying to get them to do their schoolwork. And you want us to do this? Like, okay, I'll put it up there, but I can't make them do it like I can. And I won't. So anyway, then my mom dies. And I'm like, and I'm frantically trying to get up there to see her before she goes. I'm thinking like she's probably like, we're in Alexandria. I'm here by myself and she's not here. And I get up there and she had just passed like 10 minutes before that. And so I was a little ticked off at God because I was like, you know, you could have waited 10 minutes. But then my sister started telling me how, you know, she had kind of been in a sleep. They had made her very comfortable, and she was really pretty much sleeping, and then she just passed away. And I felt numb. And I'm looking at my mom's body, and I've never done this, but I just started hugging her because I used to always hug her to comfort her. And I was like, oh, Mom, like you were just here. You were just here. And you know what? For the first time ever, death and mortality did not make sense. Like, how can someone just be here and then be gone? Like, why would they leave? What is it that makes them go? And where is she? You know, like, oh yes, we say she's with Jesus in heaven, but like, is she? You know, is she? Where, you know, like.
And that's the reality of it. I think as a mental health counselor, you have to wrestle with that.
Yeah.
So how do I counsel myself?
Yeah.
Who's going to counsel me through this?
Yes. So I was just like, I was just numb. And so I went back home, we made funeral arrangements, and the whole time I was really saying, God, like, I really need some help. And dummy that I am, I ended up counseling some people who had also lost their moms. So like, I'm trying to help them, and I'm doing a pretty good job. But inside, I'm all like, right? And then the Lord started giving me these amazing scriptures, because I just sat down with him and I said, you have got to talk to me. I have to hear from you. I can't go on. I have to hear from you. And so he gave me these scriptures from Paul when he said, I knew this guy, and he said, whether in the body or out of the body, I don't know, but he was caught up into the third heaven. And he said, I know he was there. He was caught up in paradise, and he saw things that are inexplicable, inexplainable, that we're not permitted to tell you. And I was like, wow. And then he goes on to talk about his thorn in the flesh. And at the end he says, when I'm less, I'm more, because of God.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
strength that he gives you.
Yes. And then I realized that when it says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, that does not mean because of Christ I can do all things. It means I can do all things because of Christ who fills in the gap to strengthen me above what I am able to do.
That's right, yeah.
He fills in the gap. He gives me the strength.
I think we talked about that today a little bit too.
We did,
Yeah.
absolutely, and that's exactly what he does. And then he gave me scriptures about how he had to come in flesh and blood so that he could die on the cross and rise from the grave and conquer the fear of death and conquer death for all of us. And so I said, well, Lord, it's clearly a question of faith. Okay, what do I choose to believe? And if I really believe everything that I've believed all my life, I've been talking to Jesus since I was 18. And if what I say I believe, I really believe, then the next question is, how am I living my life? Like, am I living my life in line with what he has me to do? And I live a pretty good life. Like, I work with a lot of people, but that wasn't the point. It was like, what you and Jesus, what are you and Jesus doing? Like, are you hearing his voice? Are you letting him transform you? Are you moving forward in faith?
And I think that's key, because when it comes down to it, you're going to answer to him
Yes,
for your life. Not what everybody else was doing,
yes,
but what were you doing?
yes.
You know, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? And you read that scripture, and I think it scares a lot of people, because Jesus looks down and says, depart from me, I never knew you.
Yeah,
Because he wants a relationship with you above everything else.
yes.
And you have a choice, like everyone else does, especially in times of bereavement, whether or not you are going to continue in your faith and put your faith in a God that you can't see, but have sense has been with you, and say, okay, I'm going to finish this race that you set out for me, rather than quit and throw in the towel because you're upset or things haven't worked out the way you want it to work out. Because when it comes down to it, it's a question of faith. Is God God, or is he not?
That's right.
Is he not? And so
Yeah.
I know for you, Linda, the process has been a little bit different, because you're actually in the healthcare field and having experienced this firsthand, and had no people who got COVID. And tell us your story this year, how it affected your business, and really how it affected you as Linda Benedetti.
Well, one thing that I really want to say, Richie's word of the year was restore, and I really feel that there's so many people in our church that have experienced restoration in some way, some form. I was able to purchase a home on my own. I was able to do things that for years that I had lacked, and God was restoring back to me. And a lot of it was my mental fortitude of believing that God is God no matter what. And it was really a struggle for me for the longest time, until I really started sitting before the Lord, making it a priority to spend time with him before anything else. If it meant getting up at 4 before you go to the gym, you get up at 4, you spend an hour and a half with him before you go to the gym. So that really helped prepare me for when COVID hit. I will say that was definitely something that enabled me to be able to walk it out. I am in healthcare. We COVID test at our agency. I was always a fear that I would get it. I ended up getting it, and it was definitely, no one can prepare you for it. Some people are asymptomatic, and I understand that. And some people have extreme. I was unfortunately one of the extremes.
But you're here.
But I'm here, by the way.
Yay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I really feel that community and family really took on a whole new meaning during that time, because you are alone. You feel that you're going to die. You're going to die alone. You're going to, you hear all those things that you heard in the past. People literally died at home, and that's what you thought. You went to bed, you laid on the couch thinking, I'm going to die, and I'm here by myself. But it was really amazing, because my strength came from spending that time with the Lord and really knowing that he loves me. And even if it meant till death, it was okay.
Yeah.
Like I am exactly where I need to be. But community and family just rallied around me in that whole situation. They would deliver food in the garage, open up the garage, close the garage, and I knew meals were here. Misty and Richie were amazing, dropping off food and meds and everything else, which I would never even be able to thank them for that. But then community was huge, because it would be those times when you were alone that you would think, okay, God, I just need a word from you right now that I am going to be okay. And someone would call inevitably from the church and just give, I'm checking on you, I'm praying for you, to know that community is there, not just in these times of when things were going good, but this is it's a lonely time, but God just brought community and family and the value that I placed on them during that time. And it just makes it sweeter now on this side of it. Unfortunately, I did not know that I was affected by it, that I had contracted it, but I gave it to my mom and dad that are 80 and 90 years old, and that was really difficult knowing that I was the carrier and affected them and not knowing what their future really was going to be. We heard once again the horror stories, and it was always that guilt, but God brought them through, both of them, to the point where, you know, a month out, they were out there playing 18 holes of golf. So we knew that they were okay. We knew that they made it. So I'm gonna say yes, I was affected by it, but family and community have they are there, not just in the good times, but in the bad.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, I think, because when you look at our core values of our church, love God, embrace community, and serve the world, they were put on center stage this year, and having to live that and it become personal on a deeper level was important, because without God, everyone here agrees that we wouldn't have made it. Our minds wouldn't have stayed steady,
Right.
because there were times where your anxiety was kicked up and you were dealing with the unknown, and you still deal with that in respects because of what the new year is going to bring and what the outcome is going to be. But I think it's caused a lot of people to reevaluate their relationship with the Lord and how serious they are. Because if it is a matter of faith, then I'm going to have to answer that question that Jesus asked Peter. Well, who do you say that I am? And that is something that's personal. Not who your mom says, not who your dad says. Who do you say? And if that's the case, you follow me. And we have to answer that, because that's where our faith is going to be strengthened and where we're going to be able to walk where God has called us to walk, even in the hard times. Because it's in the hard times that we realize that His strength is made perfect. It's made perfect. And we don't like to talk about that a lot because we want God and we want to be near to Him. But we only see how near He is when it's difficult, and it's hard when we're at the end of ourself and our strength, because that's when His strength is made perfect in weakness. And so if we can be okay with that, to know that God's good whether I'm good or whether or not I'm not doing great, then I think our relationship with the Lord will begin to grow. And like Maria said, we realize that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, because He does make up the difference. He makes up the difference. And so, and embracing community, how big that was for people, and having that be a pillar of our church, I think has been a strength for us, because people are literally like doing life together and just trying to help each other as best as they can, especially when it comes to the physical aspect of it, emotionally, spiritually, even financially. Being able to reach out and help people during this time has been key, because I believe that's the church's job, is to be the hands and feet of Jesus, but also to do good to those who are of the household of faith. That's where God is glorified, when we kind of take care of one another. And then serving the world, and not just making it about yourself during this time, because it's really easy where it's like, oh, my needs are not getting met. They're just not getting met. I can't do anything. But say, you know what? No, we're going to have church. We're going to get out into the community. We're going to partner with some ministries, and we're going to serve, because people need the hope that we have, and we need to be the extension of Christ during this time, because He hasn't changed.
Right.
He hasn't changed, and His heart hasn't changed. And so we have to stay in that lane with Him, to know that regardless, that we're going to help and do what we can. And I think God has brought us to that place, especially as we look back, so that we can look forward, to know that if God has brought us through this, He's going to bring you through the next thing. This was just a setup for the next thing. Yeah, there's going to be a next thing that God is going to bring you through, because 2021 is going to bring its own challenges. We look back, and we joke today in church, we're like, we're going to look back at 2020 and laugh, because that was nothing.
Okay.
That was nothing. Okay? Because that was nothing because of what we're experiencing now. Because God's grace is going to be sufficient next year.
Right.
And it's going to be sufficient. And as things get maybe a little more difficult, you're going to experience the grace of God, and you're going to know it's the grace of God because you sense it and you've seen the grace of God. And I think if you look at it that way, it's easier for you to trust because you've had to walk through some hard times. And I think those who have walked through the hard times can appreciate God in a new way than those who maybe just had things handed to them a little bit. And I think a lot of people this year have had to walk through hard times. And I want to encourage you, community, and I want to encourage our lead team here is just to continue to go and follow God. There's no going back. There's nothing back there for you. There's nothing back there. You know, we talk about Israel and how God delivered them from Egypt. There's nothing back in Egypt that God wanted them to have. He said, that's it. I'm going to take you into the promised land that I have for you. But it's going to require that some old thought patterns and things die off so that you can take on the new nature of how I've called you to live. Don't allow the enemy to trick you into thinking that, well, last year was so much better. Really? Really? It wasn't so much better. Don't allow uncomfortability to scare you. Don't allow the unknown to scare you. I think what you can do to be able to thwart that is just embrace it.
Yeah.
Every day, just embrace it. You know that God's for you. He's good. He's got you. He's the net that's going to catch you. And if we can get there, you're going to find faith as you go through things. Don't avoid it. Go through it because that's where you're going to be strengthened. Because that's what you really want. You want to be strengthened in your inner man to be able to do what God's called you to do. You don't want to avoid stuff. There's no reward in that. No reward. No reward. Jesus talks about endurance. He talks about hardship and difficulty. And being able to embrace that, and that's just part of life, helps you rise above it. And so that you can meet the next challenge. And so I'm going to pray for you and pray that God gives you the grace that you need going into 2021, because it is 2021. Almost. And I know that God has good things for you. So Father, thank you so much for what you did this year, because you're good no matter what. Thank you for your grace that was sufficient, and for us seeing that we can do all things through you who gives us strength. Thank you for making up the difference, giving us the ability to overcome. We know that we do overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We thank you that we are blood bought, that we are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus, and also that our testimony says that you've been good. You've been good. You delivered us from COVID. You've helped us grieve properly and recognize where our faith needs to be. God, you've given us the ability to see past our limitations physically so that we can move and do the things that you've called us to do. And even emotionally, God, given us an anchor to know that you are the anchor for our soul. We thank you so much for your grace. Thank you for everyone that's even listening today. Just a hedge of protection around them as they go forward. Thank you that you have a plan and purpose for their life. It's a good plan. It's a good purpose. That nothing the enemy can conjure up is going to stop that. But we know that you're going to have the last word. And we trust you. And to know that the best is yet to come. In Jesus' name, amen. We'll see you soon.